Well, this one took its sweet time, didn't it? So I was basically on track for getting this video done in the same vein as the Game Pass July 2023 video, until something happened that prevented me from doing any more work on it. I started playing Baldur's Gate 3. And by the time I managed to break myself free from that, it was already halfway through September and I started doing a master's degree, which started eating up all of my free time. Also, shout out to Namor and River for saving my neck editing a bunch of videos while I do smart stuff. But I'd still gotten a good way into writing and recording my views on all these games from August 2023, and I still wanted to publish my thoughts on them, mainly out of spite for the many series I've tried and failed to start over the years. The main problem now, though, is how can I get people interested in games released in one very specific bygone month, some of which being released several years ago, released on a non-Steam subscription app that barely top 10 list. Haha, major click. It was jolly convenient too that we had 10 games come out this month, if you count my promised carryover of Venba, and don't count Call of the Wild Angler, which, come on, it's a fishing simulator. What do you want me to say? They turned all those fishing minigames into its own full game. It finch. I also won't be counting games that were added on cloud gaming this month, since when I checked, each of them already existed on main Game Pass already in some capacity, thank God. And, as per audience request, and I suppose for experimentation, I will be segmenting this video into smaller sections covering 2 games at a time, for the sake of, well, uploading half consistently. Then, as also promised, the main large video comprising of every entry from this series will be released too, just like the old July video. And before I start, I just want to stress that the main takeaway from this shouldn't be that higher game good, lower game bad, because truth be told, every game this month was a good game. Hell, I'd even say it was a better overall month than July was, and I'd even consider most of the games in this list to be great games. So it was difficult to put a lot of them above one or the other, and at the end of the day, this is my opinion, and I do recommend checking out every game in this list, just some slightly more than others.
One of the many bizarre crimes later known as the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, you know gaming reached its peak in 2023 when the recently released game expects itself to be bugged. Guess we're all beta testers now, lads. Alright, so the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a team-based PvP multiplayer cat and mouse in a similar vein to Dead by Daylight. Role-playing as part of the classic horror movie, you can either play the victims, who are all trying to escape the kidnapper's house and secret dungeons, or the family, who are all working to prevent them from escaping. So it all really plays out like a hide-and-seek, which prioritizes stealth for the victims with plenty of different crawl spaces and dangly objects that make noise and alert those more obsessed with the idea of family than Vin Diesel with a corona. All the family have to hunt them down and, feed blood to their grandpa, who will grant them all extra abilities for fighting the victims. Somehow. My only explanation for this is that the psycho lumberjack family are all vampires, and this is now my official headcanon. Each playable character on either side has their own unique playstyle, although it looks like you'll have to experiment with them out in the field because the game's tutorial consists of about 40 odd videos showcasing what each of them do, and I'm sorry, I'm definitely not going to watch all that. I just think it'd be far more effective to just play each one offline or with bots to learn how to utilize them on a basic level, before you take them in a match with people with the sense of either a bloodhound or a hobbit wearing a fancy ring. But anyway, let's get into the actual gameplay. Gameplay-wise, it does make for a very fun and tense game with all these killers or escapees on the loose, who could be anywhere, and plenty of well-placed obstacles that can cause noise if you're not careful, and a shortcut only certain characters can take advantage of that allows some victims a chance to make a break for it, or some killers a new way to close in on them. And after playing several matches, getting several kills, and even escaping one time, but Shadowplay didn't pick that clip up because holding sprint and my clipping button simultaneously turns my recordings off, I found myself having some good fun with this. Initially, I enjoyed playing the family at first, but ended up enjoying the victims more once I figured out the map layouts and where to escape and how to bloody go downstairs. So long as you don't get cornered in the basement straight away, and whether the family can actually find the way down there from the surface, it could be just as simple as beelining it out like a startled, slightly injured antelope, or waiting for them to go far enough away to get the exit unlocked. It may be something I haven't spotted, but it would be useful if the family could yell out if they found some victims, since my fellow psychopaths might be completely oblivious any of them have even been found. Though from my experience, 9 times out of 10 you get spotted, you may as well get it over and done with unless there's a very generous shortcut nearby and you're not being chased by the hitchhiker. But yeah, I realize I happened to place the multiplayer only game in last, haha, but this game about your average Southern American cult is not bad at all. It's a good, gory cat and mouse stealth game loosely based on the 1974 film that didn't actually turn out to be that buggy on my end personally. Maybe that message was more of a precautionary thing than anything, but I'm still mad that we've gotten to this point in gaming though. Now where did I put that chainsaw? You know what? I think from that experience, Texas might be a little bit too scary. So let's leave that all behind and collect 2 of every sane person on Earth and head up to the skies and leave those hillbillies behind for good. Airborne Kingdom is another building and management game where this time your kingdom is flying up in the sky. Why? Because bordering off your land from hostile neighbors is far too complicated, that's why. It's essentially the premise of that Castle in the Sky anime from Studio Ghibli, now with an Arabian steampunk aesthetic, where your main goal is to eventually ally up with all 12 ground kingdoms and repopularize the flying machine. So with your kingdom, what now comprises of the second highest castle in the world outside Castle Wyvern, you now have unique challenges that face your floating kingdom. Aside from dropping the occasional vomit bomb down below, all resources need to be collected from the ground, so agriculture is merely a trivial matter and someone else's problem. You need to constantly maintain your engine fuel, or else you'll end up collapsing to the ground and wiping out the whole kingdom like that. Not too dissimilar to the current economy, as well as being careful that your building placement doesn't tilt the kingdom so much that it'll end up, at best, causing mild irritation with your populace, and at worst, capsizing the entire village. You know, Hover Kingdom stuff. It is relatively easy to keep a grip of the concepts and challenges it throws you as mentioned earlier, but you need to keep your kingdom's weight maintained as well as make sure your industrial factories aren't built in too close proximity to your houses. It's as easy as just keep all your residents on one side and industrial buildings on the opposite corner. The quests for allying up with kingdoms seem to be quite straightforward as well so far, usually coming down to bringing them this resource they want and now we're best friends. Although going back to resources, you'll have to find everything you need by looking around the landscape as opposed to marking them on your map to make them a bit easier to find. They are all marked by giant words on the ground, like every region has its own Hollywood sign, the same way every Midwestern town has its own water tower, but it would be nice if it was easier to find the areas on the ground, at least where your workers are collecting resources to be able to reassign them to different jobs. They're only marked by a red balloon, and even then, it can be a little difficult to pinpoint exactly where they are in the entire 360-degree plane of field, especially when it gets really dark at night. In the end, I actually think this could be a decent entry-level game into the larger scale world of society management sims. You never need to worry about conflict and only really need to focus on quests and managing resources, storage, and population of your steadily evolving kingdom, as well as not placing buildings in the doo-doo places it warns you against. Definitely nothing groundbreaking, but still worth checking out.